Hello there, good evening and welcome. This is Abuja Dispatch, and like we always tell you on this program every week, this is a platform where we try to bring to your living rooms those events and issues, and indeed those characters that have shaped the entire socio-economic landscape of the federal capital city, Abuja, in the last 7 days. Adegboyega Arogbodo is my name. Let's start off with those stories that made up our headlines in the outgoing week.
The National Economic Council has ordered a forensic audit of the electricity distribution companies. This follows recommendations of the subcommittee set up by the council to investigate the ownership status of discos in the country. The audit is to identify the level of investment by the distribution companies since the privatization process, which has continued to generate controversy. The council also directed state governments to submit details of their investment in the discos since 2013. The federal government had recently expressed disappointment at the performance of the distribution companies to supply adequate electricity to Nigerian consumers. The NEC committee has, however, requested for 2 months to complete its investigation before it submits its final recommendations.
Vamping of the Nigerian Armed Forces.
The House of Representatives on Tuesday passed into second reading a bill for an act to amend the Labour Act of 2004 to prohibit and criminalize casualization of workers after 6 months of engagement by employers in Nigeria, outsourcing employment in core areas of operation. In his lead debate at plenary, sponsor of the bill, Honorable Wale Raji, revealed that the Labour Act, which is in 2 phases, mandates the regularization of an employee's employment after 6 months of employment, normally called probational period, and to punish any person or corporate entity in breach of the above with a monetary penalty and jail terms by virtue of the new Section 8. Explaining further on outsourcing employment, Honorable Raji said the amendment also aimed at providing adequate penalty in cases of breach by the inclusion of the new Section 9. Members, while speaking in favor of the bill, lamented how casual workers are treated less with low income without any entitlement at the end of services they rendered. All stakeholders must accelerate actions at both the national and subnational levels for total achievement of gender equality and human rights of women and girls in the country. The Minister of Women Affairs, Mrs. Pauline Tallen, gave this charge at a media conference to flag off activities for the commemoration of the 2020 International Women's Day celebration in Abuja. Mrs. Tallen said year 2020 presents another platform to assess the current challenges affecting the implementation and realization of gender equality and women empowerment agenda in the country. The UN country representative to Nigeria and ECOWAS, Mrs. Comfort Lamptey, posited that the country still needs to do more in addressing the rate of violence against women and increased representation of women in parliament. She, however, noted that Nigeria had made some progress in realizing women's rights in certain areas. The theme for this year's celebration is I Am Generation Equality, realizing women's rights for an equal future.
The Supreme Court has dismissed the application of PDP's Emeka Ihedioha, seeking it overturned the January 14th decision nullifying his electoral victory in favor of his rival, Hope Uzodinma of the APC. In a ruling delivered by Justice Kayode Ariwoola, the court reiterated that the decision of the Supreme Court is final. It said the Supreme Court lacks the jurisdiction to sit on appeal in its own decision, citing Section 235 of the Supreme Court, which underscores the finality of the decision of the Apex Court. However, in a dissenting ruling, Justice Santos Nweze said the Apex Court has power to overrule its own decision in the interest of justice. It said the application by the PDP presented an opportunity for the Supreme Court to redeem its image after the controversial decision of 14th January, which nullified the election of Emeka Ihedioha of the PDP. It said the Apex Court erroneously declared Uzodinma winner of the governorship election. The decision, he said, will continue to haunt electoral jurisprudence in Nigeria.
Welcome back. Drug abuse is a problem that is causing serious concerns to both individuals and the government all over the world. The problem is prevalence among adolescents, who in most cases are ignorant about the dangers inherent in drug abuse. Many of them engage in these acts out of frustration, poverty, lack of parental supervision, peer influence, and pleasure. However, with effective counseling programs, these societal problems can be tackled. This is the thrust of our Dateline this week. Stay with us.
The consumption of hard drugs in amounts and ways not authorized by medical professionals has become but a silent reality that Nigerians should worry about. Although drug abuse cuts across all strata, powerful statistics make it abundantly clear that the youth, mostly males, with a sprinkle of females, are the real culprits. Studies have shown that there are three main forms of drug abuse. They include the use of mood-altering or psychoactive drugs, performance-enhancing drugs, and dependency drugs. While mood-altering or psychoactive drugs such as codeine and tramadol affects the user's ability to reason and gives him a false sense of well-being, performance-enhancing drugs such as cocaine and heroin gives him extra stamina or energy. Dependency on drugs typify the kind of drugs that people abuse in the course of trying to overcome health issues or challenges or taking to maintain a particular lifestyle. This stunning awareness has made getting to the root of the social challenge more compelling.
Codeine has no place in cough therapy. So we can do without codeine. In fact, most hospitals don't treat cough syrup with codeine. Usually you don't see it on prescriptions. Even before the ban, you don't see it on prescriptions because it doesn't really give you much. If you treat a patient with cough syrup with codeine, it keeps coming back.
Illicit drug use among the youth is a challenge in Nigeria. In fact, the fact that the youths are the workforce or they make up the major workforce in the country makes that population a very serious population. You find that Nigeria has been a transit route for illicit substances, and because of that, for substances that cannot find their way out or through the country or find their way into the country are likely going to be abused within the country.
Apart from the negative peer influence, unemployment, anxiety, and a continuous need to run away from problems are the major reason why Nigerian youths take to drugs. This, however, may not be the only explanations fueling this social evil. Specifically, the desire by these youths to hide their weaknesses, failure on the part of parents to raise overall healthy children, the broken home syndrome, and pressure to succeed at all costs also promotes drug abuse among youth. It has been proven that drug consumption in amounts and methods not authorized by medical professionals has in the past led to mental disorder. It has also disrupted the user's education and future, led to poor attitude to work, and caused health problems such as lung disease, heart disease, and death, among others.
From some of the research findings that we have seen, and from the experiences working through communities and everywhere, we can see that we have a growing drug problem, and many young people are getting involved. Even considering some of the national research work that has been done, talking about the integrated biological behavioral surveillance survey, most of the injecting drug users they were interviewed were reportedly to be young people. So we have many young people who are already using drugs.
Across the Federation, we have 36 state commands, and we have, in each of these commands, we have a counseling department for counseling, and then we do treatment in conjunction with general hospitals and psychiatric hospitals, a reference kind of situation. In all these places, at all times, when you go there, the overriding number of persons that are there are predominantly the youth population.
It is no doubt a socio-economic problem that requires a prompt solution. The Social Development Index showed that the development of young people has gradually deteriorated in the past decade. These adolescent issues and problems should therefore provide useful pointers for designing the positive youth development program to be judiciously sponsored by government or its reliable developmental partners. The federal government and its agencies must come up with strategies that will effectively tackle the challenge from its roots. Before now, what government is doing in this direction is but a palliative measure which can only provide temporary relief while leaving the disease and its ravages unaffected. To succeed in this task, therefore, government must evolve workable strategies towards creating jobs for qualified youth, addressing the challenges facing education sector in terms of funding and tackling the infrastructural challenges.
Whatever government does to interdict and punish those who peddle and traffic in drugs, I think everybody should go for that. But I always urge government that those who use are victims of a problem and they need help, and we should try to help them.
Reorientation of the youth on cultural values by faith-based organizations and civil society groups will assist them to quit the consumption of illicit drugs and the unwholesome behavior that endanger their lives and threaten the society. Parents and guardians must strive to monitor their children at all times and be aware of the kind of friends their children keep, as well as the places to go to. Unfortunately, many young people derive their identity from their peer group and their extensive social network. Youths, on their part, must recognize that the future is full of promises as it is fraught with uncertainty. They should therefore develop the capacity to seek activities laced with highest values. After all, drug addiction, misuse, or abuse have never helped anybody.
Thanks for staying with us. The committees of the National Assembly have been repeatedly identified as the engine room of the legislature, the pivot upon which the oversight, lawmaking, and confirmatory processes rest upon. Given the prime importance of the National Assembly to democratic governance, these committees are expected to earn the trust of the public by promoting greater citizens' engagement in the legislative processes. On Space View this week, we featured the Chairman Senate Committee on Ethics and Public Petitions. Join us again. On Split Views tonight, we are having in our studio the Chairman Senate Committee on Ethics and Public Petitions and Senator representing Ondo Central Senatorial District, Senator Ayo Akinyelure. You're welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you, my brother.
Public Petitions and Ethics Committee, what is it all about?
See, public petitions and it's 3 committees in one, and it's a special committee of the Senate. A special committee in the sense that the span of control of this committee covers all agencies of government in all ramifications, whether you are from oil sector, any sector, all the sector of the economy, whether financial, any sectors of the economy, this committee is relevant. So our span of control covers all the agencies of government, the public officer. It talks about the ethical behavior of a normal public officer in this country, whether in the legislature, whether in the executive, whether in the judiciary. This committee oversees all of them to ensure that the ethical behavior is complied with. Then we talk about the privileges. What are their privileges? What are your privileges as a public officer? Can a public officer just be sacked, by his employer anytime, any day? No. The answer is no. There are rules. There are procedures to be followed in doing things in the public service. We talk about the civil servants. After reaching the age of 35 years in service, or 60 years, whichever is earlier, he may be retired. But the government of the may still need their services. They make them, public officers by appointment to be DGs, MDs of parasitas here and there. So there are ethical behaviors that they must be followed. What are their privileges? Can a constituted board of an organization be sacked by the person who appointed you? The answer is yes. But if you are a civil servant, nobody can just rise up one day and sack you when you didn't commit any offense. Therefore, the ethics, privileges, and public petition, and the public petition talks about those whose rights have been infringed upon. Those rights have been infringed upon. In any spheres of public life, they have a right to write to their representative, to the Senate, whether to the House of Rep, your representative. We have 360 members in the House of Rep. We have 109 senators representing 109 central districts in Nigeria. So everybody, wherever you are resident in Nigeria, you have a representative in the Senate that can represent your interests. There are many Nigerians who have no means to what? To pursue their right to the law court. Therefore, this committee, being a special committee of the Senate of Federal Republic of Nigeria, and we have similar committee in the House of Representatives, those individuals whose rights, whether corporate or individual in the country, whose rights have been infringed upon, have a right to petition to the Senate when they don't have the means to go to court to go and, seek redress. They can seek redress through the elected representative of the people in the legislature. And that is why this particular committee is considered as one of the special committees of the Senate where rights of individuals can be protected.
All right, so, it is a general belief that for democracy to thrive, the National Assembly is expected to work hand in hand to really ensure the trust of the people. And that's what, this committee is all about, as it were. Now, how successful, you've just given us one or two instances, but generally speaking, how successful do you think the committee, the National Assembly has been, able to key into the usefulness of this committee to really attract the trust of Nigerians?
Well, as a matter of fact, in the 7th Assembly, this committee was not well funded. In fact, in most cases, when petitioners come, I use my personal fund to give them money to go back to their homes. But under the 9th Assembly, under the leadership of Senator Ahmad Lawan, who has been, an experienced legislator from inception of this particular assembly, we call them the indigene of the Senate, indigene of National Assembly. Those who have been re-elected back over and over and over again. So he knows the working of the legislature. He knows the importance of this particular committee. In the 7th Assembly, he was a member of this committee. While he was then the chairman of the Senate Committee on Public Accounts, I was also a member of his committee. But me, re-elected back by my people in the 9th Assembly, considered me fit with loaded experience to man this particular committee. I will tell you, he has encouraged this committee. But the encouragement is not yet enough. He will still add more. Because this committee acts as the ombudsman of the whole Nigeria in the Red Chamber. The ombudsman. We have a Public Complaints Commission, which is the ombudsman for the whole Nigeria. They have offices in 36 plus FCT. Ombudsman, that is Public Complaints Commission, is a creation of the Constitution, independent and working under the, is under, National Assembly. They are independent of the executive arm of government. They are the ombudsman of the Nigeria. But we are the ombudsman of the whole Nigeria in the Red Chamber. Are you with me now? So, funding has been a problem. For instance, in public complaint, their fundings have their problems. They have 36 states. They have complaints. People who voted us here, they don't have means to go to court. Their lands have been usurped by some powerful people. Some people's houses are just been deprived of their rights and responsibilities in this country. That is the work of ombudsman. In the 36 states, we have 36 state offices. And this particular committee supervises that particular agency of government. And therefore, this committee funding requirement is very key to success of this particular committee. I will tell you, since the inception of this particular assembly, 6 months ago, we have resolved more than 30 cases. Some cases that have lasted for 3 or 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years in the court of law are resolved here by bringing both of them together. Let's come on the same table. Most are resolved through alternative dispute resolutions. Most are resolved through the public hearing by inviting the agency of government. Tell the whole Nigeria, what what is the reason for you to sack this innocent person from work? This work belongs to the whole Nigeria, our father's land. Why must somebody consider himself what? An authority. Performing, engaging in impunity of highest order. This is what this committee stands to correct.
Most times when there are motions and bills from the floor of the Red Chamber, it cuts across the whole country and it charges the whole polity kind of.
Right.
Now, recently there is this call, there is this Senate calling for the establishment of an agency for repentant Boko Haram insurgents. Now, this is generating a lot of conflicting controversies across the polity. What do you think? I mean, what's your own take on the whole?
As a matter of fact, when you talk about security matters in this country, Mr. President of the nation is the chief security officer. I'm only elected to be a legislator. My opinion is a one-man opinion. And therefore, when you talk about security challenges in this country, it borders on the executive arm of government. Our one is to make relevant laws that will make Mr. President achieve significant success in securing this country. Boko Haram or no Boko Haram, it started as if it's a child's play. But today, it has become something like everybody is now looking for how to solve. But I want to assure you that the Night Assembly is ready to be on the same page with the executive arm of government. Whatever the executive wants, the legislature will be on the same page with them to solve these problems. It's a problem that has to be jointly solved. That's my own opinion. Because I don't have the solution alone. When we all meet in the legislature, everybody hears out his own opinion. At the end of the day, the opinions are coordinated together. What is for us to make laws for good governance of this country. Where we feel that there are leakages in the law or loopholes in the law that make Mr. President not to deliver on his mandate, we have to block those by amendment of relevant laws. Charge everybody arm of government with responsibility to deliver on their mandate. And with that, I believe Mr. President is doing his best. That is, President Muhammadu Buhari is doing his best. But he's a single individual, like me. He is in Azorok. Can he be in the war front? He cannot. But the fact is that the agencies of government are to work together. How do we jointly solve this problem? Not to be blaming X, Y, Z. We don't need to blame anybody. There's a problem on our kitty. What is important is for us to jointly sit down. If it is legislation that you needed, we are ready to make it available. If it is funding that bring the appropriation, we will approve it.
Senator Ayu Akinlure is representing Ondo Central Senatorial District and is the chairman of Senate Committee on Ethics and Public Petitions. Thank you for your comment, sir.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you very much, sir.
God bless you.
Notice you empower the court to impose a man rejected by the people on the people. That goes to the heart of democracy and it destroys the fabric of our democratic process. So in amending the Electoral Act, one of the things I would like to see the Parliament to do, and we are going to make representation, is that in the unlikely event that people have voted in good faith for candidates that were validly put before them by INEC, and looking at the faces of the candidate, they opted for a particular one. If anybody has issues with that person that has won, that the people preferred, the court cannot impose the person that was rejected. The very best the court can do is to order that the exercise be repeated. Because in a democracy, nobody other than the people can choose who govern them, not the courts. Not the court. For me, this is fundamental when it comes to who actually won the election. The issue of whether Muhammadu, Momo, whether they mean one and the same person, is too technical for the real electorate to bother about. When there are no two people parading themselves as to suggest that there is a case of impersonation. This system should not be detained by technicalities. At the heart of every judicial pronouncement on election must be who actually won the majority of lawful votes.
That is how far time can permit us tonight on Abuja Dispatch. For further information, comments, and suggestions, you can reach us out on our various social media platforms. Thank you for allowing us your moments tonight on Abuja Dispatch. A week from now, we'll bring you another refreshing package. Same time, same station. Adegboyega Arogodo is my name. Have a good night.